Welcome to a special edition of the NCW Life magazine, Pybus University, where learning is a lifelong adventure. The Pybus Public Market is pleased to offer a series of unique and fun classes for the Wenatchee Valley community. Classes are taught by local volunteers with an interest and aptitude in the subjects that they teach.
Thank you so much for showing up. So who's ready to count some calories? Woo! Yeah? Yeah, I'm about that excited too about that. And that's why we're here, right? To talk about some other options than the inconvenience and the frustration of counting calories. So weight loss is the number one reason why people decide to go on a diet. Today, I'm going to show you why that is the least effective option to gain and maintain a healthy, balanced weight. So let's talk about diets. Let's talk about what that is. And for most of us, diets are a caloric restriction or a way that we're trying to lose weight and we're changing our food in a way that is not natural for us. And so then we shift the way we're interacting with our food. And the thing about diets is it is not a natural way for us to eat. And so it creates all sorts of underlying issues that are not an asset for us. So one of the things that we're thinking about when we're thinking about diets is, we've got the caloric restriction, we've got to count those points, or we've got to buy these pre-made meals that are frozen and taste like cardboard, and they're not satisfying, and then we're hungry, and then we make really bad choices because we were so good, right? We were so good. And then we fall off the wagon, or we're like, screw it, I'm just going to go cheat. And then we make all of these snowball events of bad decisions, and we find ourselves then at the bottom of a bag of chips, at the end of a cake that we swore we would only have one piece, right? So how effective is that diet when it leads to this rebound? See, one of the key reasons of why diets don't work is because when we restrict ourselves, we then inevitably have to have a rebound. We cannot go to one extreme without pushing back to the other. And so we put in all of this effort, and we often are guilting ourselves into doing the right thing, starting our day off right with basically almost nothing of substance, and then we're starving by the time we reach 3 o'clock. And then all of our plans just completely go off in a different direction. Anybody ever been there? Yeah, I've definitely been there. And I understand what it is to struggle with food and to not know if I could trust myself with food. And how does that feel when you can't trust yourself with food? Can you relax? No. It's a stressful experience. And then food becomes something other than a way to nourish ourselves. Food becomes the enemy. Food becomes this thing that is nebulous and is going to take us down. And it's out there to get us versus out there to nourish us. So we're going to talk about that. So when we're talking about diets and a way that we interact with our food, the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I'll tell you what, it thrives on repeat customers. It's really not to their benefit that you don't have to keep doing this or that you would stop dieting. And that yo-yo diet is so detrimental to our health in so many different ways. It's so frustrating to a healthy, happy life. There are many famous dieters out there. I'm sure some of you have a few names coming to mind. Oprah is kind of the most vocal of them. Christy Alley. They make a living about offering these programs, and yet you are repeatedly seeing them struggle with their weight because those dietary approaches of restricting our calories is inevitably going to lead to that rebound. It's inevitably going to create the foundation where then we don't trust ourselves around food. And then we can't make good choices if we don't trust ourselves, right? Because if we don't trust ourselves, how on earth can we then show up for ourselves and actually be able to deeply make food choices that are going to be nourishing for us? So with that restriction, diets create that problem because when we're holding back, we binge. And it shows up in many, many different ways, whether that's a cheat day. So when we're looking at the words we use, we're cheating. So then even then us allowing that wiggle room is somehow tagged as a cheat, as a bad thing. And we don't then allow ourselves to relax and even enjoy those days fully because, gosh, I really shouldn't be doing this, and yet there you are. And you're beating yourself up with that. And that shame cycle creates so much trauma in us, creates so much stress in our lives and in our relationships because we cannot allow food to just be food, to be a way that we nourish ourselves. It becomes this tool rather than a way that we show ourselves love. One of the things that I see consistently with chronic dieters is their metabolism begins to slow down. And what's the number one thing you want? If you think a diet is a good thing to go on, you want a more robust functioning metabolism, right? But the diet's not going to give you that. When we restrict our calories, our body says, okay, well, looks like this is the amount of energy I'm getting in right now, so I'm going to have to slow some systems down in order to work properly. And so things like our metabolism and our hormones, they don't quite work as well, which then sets us up for a whole series of issues that then lay the foundation for deeper levels of chronic disease. See, it's not just about weight loss. In fact, the weight is merely a symptom of your body struggling to find its balance. The weight is not the problem, yet we tag it as the problem. So when we shift to eating something different, if we don't instantly notice that change in our weight, well, this doesn't work. I'm not going to do this anymore, right? So then we stop. But the key is we need to reframe how we're going to eat so that we can feed our metabolism rather than starve it, so that we can feed our hormones and give our bodies and our minds the building blocks that it needs to work properly. How has your thought process been when you have been on a diet? Have you been super sharp and able to think really, really quickly, or do you feel a little fuzzy? A little hard to think, I swear I'm supposed to do that more often? It's because your brain doesn't have the food that it requires, that it's screaming for. And those cravings that you're shoving down and telling yourself that you're wrong for craving these particular foods, those were actually flags that are telling you that you might need something within that food that you're looking for. And we're going to play around with how do you investigate that? How do you explore that? Because we want to stop using diet as a Band-Aid. Because if we're just going on a diet or restricting ourselves, we then have used it as a Band-Aid to actually look at the core issues of why we do not have a healthy, balanced weight. And I want to help you stop just using a Band-Aid. You know, there is a time and a place for Band-Aids, but it is not a long-term fix. And usually it's only a temporary fix, like maybe a couple of days. And then you need to take that Band-Aid off so that your body can heal. But with diets, we create it and turn it into a way of life. And then we feel that we are not quite doing what we should if we fall off the wagon. So how do we shift away from this? How do we shift away from slowing our metabolism, from creating brain fog, from pushing our hormones out of balance into a place where we can actually hold it, we can actually enjoy our food? I mean, what would it be like if you could sit down to a meal and thoroughly enjoy every single bite? Without shame, without guilt, without that little voice in the back of your head going, oh, you're going to need to be on the treadmill for like 3 hours for this one, right? Yeah, so then we create this, like, food is this bargaining chip. And we have to then pay it off with other things because it's like this debt that we create versus an asset for us. So when we're looking at how do we make this shift, we need to start listening. Because for so long, we have stopped listening to ourselves. We have stopped listening to those cues that our body is screaming at us. Those cravings, that frustration, the guilt that we lay on ourselves, telling us that we are not okay right here and right now. So when we start listening to those cravings, then we can start unpacking what those mean. Instead of pushing our bodies and our minds into a place where we are not happy. Have you ever met a long-term dieter who is a happy person? Like, truly? I haven't. They're pretty frustrated. Because they haven't really been able to be nourished to the point where they can actually relax. So if we can listen to those cravings, listen to those signals that our body is saying, I want this particular food, I'm hungry, or one that we frequently ignore, especially in the dieting realm of restriction, is I'm full. So many of us don't even know what that sensation of honest fullness is. Is it the point where you're like, I can't move, oh my gosh, nope, I'm gonna have to sit here for like 3 hours before I can move. That was a really big meal. You know, hey, is that a comfortable space? Is that a healthy, satiated point? Or is that beyond what you've consumed? Do you feel awesome after that? Yeah, let's go and play. No, you're like, I'm gonna go hide for a while. So when we're listening, we're then creating this opportunity to actually hear those cries for help that our body is sending up. And we cannot keep ignoring it. Otherwise, we're continuing to put Band-Aids and coverings and dressings and disguises over the pain and the frustration and the imbalance that is there. And by listening, we shift that balance to actually begin seeing ourselves as someone worthy of listening to. Who here thought, wait, listen to my cravings? Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And one of the common responses I get is, wait a second, no, if I give in to my cravings, you do not understand. I will decimate that grocery store. There is no way that any food is going to be able to be in my periphery because I will eat it. And that is a response that you have trained yourself to have. It's a response from restriction. So your brain then says, any opportunity, we're going to eat it all. Because she or he might say, nope, no food for you. And then we can't have that space to be able to build that trust. And that trust is the factor that is going to run through building a healthy relationship with your food. If you can listen to those cravings, like cravings for sugar, cravings for salty, crunchy things. If you can listen to those, can you give yourself that and actually allow yourself to enjoy it? Instead of guilting yourself with every single bite, guilting yourself with every single morsel that you put anywhere near your mouth. So if you can allow yourself to enjoy your food, and I mean sit down, don't cuddle in a corner, trying to eat it real quick so nobody sees you, sit down and actually enjoy that food, and I mean savor every single morsel of it. Chewing your food fully actually allows you to taste it more and gives you a greater sense of satisfaction with your food. It also allows your brain to register what it is that you're eating, so it can then tell you that it is given what it needs and tell you when it's hungry. But if you are hoovering that in, your brain cannot even begin to say, oh, no, we're good there, until way far down the line. And then you end up in a place where, because it was not a comfortable thing to listen to what you wanted or to give yourself what you wanted. And we need to look at that. Why is it that you cannot allow yourself to have these little joys and thoroughly enjoy them? Because oftentimes what I see and what I've experienced is with dieters, if they are holding back from that food, all bets are off when they go for it. But also, it's considered this bad food. And so we then tag our food as good or bad. I can't have gluten. It wreaks havoc on my body. And it took me a while to figure that out. And so initially when I found out that I couldn't have gluten, I felt like I was never going to be able to eat anything ever again. Right? There's no other food. And this created this stress in my body and my mind where I was not able to have this food because I knew if I did, I would have incredible amounts of pain. So for me, gluten makes me feel like I am on fire inside. It is so incredibly uncomfortable, and it takes about a day for that to go away. So this is where my mind was before. For me not to eat it, knowing that that was the symptom, was very, very difficult. And that was a reflection of my concept of self-worth. For some reason, I had linked my idea that I had to be able to eat this in order to be acceptable. That if I had to say no to something, something was wrong, that I wasn't okay. And it shifted for me when I decided to love myself and actually have it be an act of love that I would choose something different. And we'll talk about that more. So that art of listening, when we can actually spend time with ourselves, then we are going to be able to hear those messages at a deeper level. Spend time chewing your food. Turn off your phone, or at least set it away. Turn off your computer, turn off the TV, and sit down and eat. It kind of becomes this weird thing that's happened in our modern society. It's like, if we're eating alone, have you ever noticed that? There's like a phone there, you're just kind of swiping through stuff, you're on Facebook, you're checking your email as you're eating. How much of that food are you tasting? Are you actually able to enjoy that or know what you're eating? No. Because you haven't allowed yourself that gift of actually tasting food. So one of the important factors that we touched on before is honoring your hunger. So many of us will not eat, and we think that that is good, that we're doing great. I didn't have that, I'm hungry, I'm really hungry, but I'm just going to hold on until this part of the day, and then I'll have a small salad, right? Or juice, because that's good, right? And then what happens at like 7 o'clock at night? Is that still working out for you? Have you still making some great choices? No, because you didn't listen to those hunger pangs that were saying, hello, I need some nourishment so that I can help you run your body properly. And then you can think and make good choices for yourself. But we ignore that. We try to push it away and say, look, just a little bit longer, right? This is great. And then we are inevitably going to fall into that rebound binge. And that creates huge problems. And when we're restricting ourselves in that way, this lays that foundation for eating disorders to develop. And there's so many people that I know that have disordered eating. It's not a clinical eating disorder, but their eating is disordered because they are not allowing themselves to actually relax and enjoy their food. And food has become this struggle for them. It's an anxiety-producing experience to have a meal for them. And that can come from struggling with weight or struggling with your health. There's so many different reasons. But when we learn to love our food and listen to what our body is telling us, then we can actually relax and be able to feel that hunger. One of the tricky things is dehydration is one of the things that feels like hunger. And so when we properly hydrate ourselves, which most of us do not do, then we are helping to tap into those real signs of hunger, rather than getting distracted by, oh, that smells good, or oh, I know I shouldn't have it, but it's there, and then we dive in. So hydration, one of the key things that everyone can plug in is a baseline for your hydration is half your weight in ounces. So that's kind of a baseline. But if you consume caffeinated beverages, this includes coffee or tea or sodas, or any type of soda, carbonated beverage, or the caffeinated beverages or juice, so like fruit juices and that sort of stuff, those are actually dehydrating. So you need an extra glass of water for every glass of that you put into your body. So many of us are walking around dehydrated, which then amplifies those hunger cravings and messes them up. We don't get really clear on what that is. We don't get clear on what that sign feels like. So hydration is your best support to being able to suss that out. So drink your water, but there's a whole diet restriction approaches. If you drink water right before your meal, then you're going to eat less, right? Because you've got something in your belly. Yeah, it doesn't work. Exactly. Nope, it doesn't work. But the hydration factor of it is an asset to helping you make better choices. And so making sure that you're properly hydrated, that's going to be a huge asset for you. I've had people walk into my office and their intake of water is 1 glass of water and 10 cups of coffee. And they wonder why their body is not working. So we have the hydration discussion. We have the discussion about coffee's effect on the digestive system and all of those different factors. And what do you know? Start shifting away. And one little tip on caffeine, just kind of a side note, is completely removing it all. Has anybody stopped coffee cold turkey? Yeah. You get some headaches with that. No withdrawal? None? Wow, you're a rare duck. Excellent. Yeah. So one of the ways that you can do that without having withdrawal symptoms is, one, you swap out half the amount of coffee that you're consuming with decaf, just from the get-go. And then you slowly start decreasing the volume and adding in hydration. And then you shift to black tea. And then you shift to green tea. And then you shift to herbal tea. And it's a way to help you step down out of that and hydrate yourself. So that's a simple and easy way to do that. So we talked about honoring your hunger. But we also need to talk about honoring your fullness. When we can listen to what it feels like to be comfortably satiated with our food. And the word fullness kind of implies that there's like this bloated discomfort to it. But satiated, I like that word, satisfied. It is nourished. It is everything that you need it to be without being too much. So when we're talking about honoring our fullness, that's where creating checkpoints in your food can be very, very helpful. Specifically checkpoints in what you're consuming, like on your plate. You're sitting at the table, right, because you're not watching TV while you're eating. So you're sitting at your table and you're eating. And one of the ways that I like to make sure that I am checking in consistently with whether or not I am full or not is to put my fork or spoon down while I'm chewing, instead of having that next bite hovering, just waiting. So if we can then create that space for us to actually chew our food fully, one, you're going to mix more saliva into your food, which is going to help you break down your food, help you absorb your food better, help you taste it more, help you absorb your nutrients better, give you more resources to make better choices, all within a single bite. But when we're not fully chewing our food, like how many of you have like chunks of food being swallowed? Because I know if I'm trying to eat fast, you can't. So if you can slow down and allow your food to be an experience, something that you enjoy, where you're reveling in every single bite and allowing yourself to savor the flavors, you're giving your body more time to tell your mind that you're good, that you had enough. And you're not bullying yourself into not eating. You're not bullying yourself into, okay, I need to interact with my food in a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to eat this much, and then we create these rules around food, and we begin to feel more restricted and more limited, and then it sets us up for that rebound and that cheat explosion, as I call it. It's so much beyond a cheat day. It's just a downward spiral, and we feel awful when we're doing it. So when we're honoring our fullness, when we're actually allowing ourselves to know when we're full, it changes what we're willing to put in our bodies, how many more bites we're willing to take. And one of the things that we need to be mindful of is we set this framework up on what's supposed to happen with our plate. Anybody here been part of the Clean Plate Club? Sorry, my mom's here, so. So when we are looking at cleaning our plate as being a sign of being good, right? You're a good girl, you ate food, you ate all of it, great job. But what if you were full before that? You know, what if there's 3 bites left and you're done? Can you honor that for yourself? Can you take that little food away? I'm not saying throw it away. It's not about waste. But maybe that could be a snack later. You know? Does that have to be consumed now? Do you have to then push yourself over that level of feeling comfortably full into a place where you are now uncomfortable, and it's just a few bites really difference? So allowing yourself to honor that fullness, to say no to a food if you're just not hungry. Can you do that? Can you allow yourself to say, I have what I need, I feel satiated, I'm going to pack up the remainder of this. And then on the flip side of that, So we've honored letting stuff sit on the plate and maybe being part of a different meal, or maybe finding its way to the compost pile, whatever works. But also, if you have eaten your meal, you've mindfully been aware that you have been chewing your food and you've been listening to your hunger, you've been listening to how your satiation is and where it's at. What if you complete your meal and you're still hungry? Right? Because you can't have more, right? Because then that would be bad. So we've got another label tacked on there. Can you allow yourself to really listen and know that you do need and want a little more? And to allow yourself to have that. And with the same thing with that second amount. Are you checking in with how you're doing with it? Are you checking in with your satiation? Because it might be that you just want a few bites more of something specific. And that's enough for you to feel like you have nourished yourself and given yourself what you need. And you've listened to those hungers. But not pushing to the point where you feel uncomfortable, where you feel bloated, where you feel unable to move properly. You see that dichotomy? Those balance points. We need to listen to what's going on. And the thing is that listening is practice. You know? Practice does not make perfect, it makes progress. So this is not something that you master instantaneously. You're practicing it. You're practicing learning to listen to your hunger. You're practicing learning how to listen to your cravings. You're practicing how to listen to yourself. And that's when you can make really good choices. But if you ignore yourself, have you ever tried to ignore an emotion? Anybody here? Ever felt frustrated and told yourself you really should not be mad because you're pissed? Yeah. So when we're talking about that, we eat for other reasons than hunger, don't we? And emotional eating is one of those things that just has this velocity and its snowball action that just takes you down. We eat because we're sad. We eat because we're mad. We eat because we're bored, frustrated, angry. And if we've had a long-term diet mindset, we even eat to spite someone. Oh yeah? I'll show you. Right? And did that other person we were trying to spite ever learn anything from that? No. But when we take this space to look at our emotions, and that's where the checkpoints are going to be another layer of asset for you. Because when we check in, we can say, why do I want this food? So we've got this food, we crave it, we've been thinking about it, right? Keeps following us around in our brain, we're just grooving about, yeah, okay, if I find that food, I'm definitely, oh, that sounds really good. But why do you want it? So if you can look at what's underneath your cravings, underneath your food desires, can you identify any emotions that are there? Is there something that you are trying to either stuff down or distract yourself from? See, the cravings are so wonderful to us because they're these flags that say, hey, yeah, I need your attention. Hello. I'm going to basically stalk your mind until you either, one, give in or actually look at me. So when we look at those cravings and why we want them, sometimes we want a food because it makes us feel like we did back on the day. We were with these people that we loved. We felt so relaxed. We felt cared for. We felt like we were safe. And so we're trying to recreate that feeling for us. It has nothing to do with the food. Food is merely that trigger that reminds us that we can feel that way. And sometimes when we feel so distant from positive feelings, we want to create these little pockets. And if we know how this food makes us feel this way because we think about this experience, then we're going to go that way. But if we spend our time picking up that emotion before we dive into that food, we shift the way we're going to interact with that food. If you go into emotional eating not knowing that you're eating emotionally, the end result is going to be very different than if you know that you're feeling a particular emotion. If you're feeling sadness, if you're feeling lonely. So when we are choosing those foods, feel that emotion, and then do a little body scan. So you start at the top of your head, and you just feel into your body, feeling any tension or tightness or emptiness or pain that might be going on. And you scan down from the top of your head all the way down through your torso, your arms, legs, to your toes. And you've got this emotion in mind. So we're going to use sadness as the example. You feel that sadness. And there might be a place in your body where you feel something different, something tight, something uncomfortable. So let's use the throat as an example. You might have this tightness in your throat when you're feeling sadness, this feeling like you can't quite digest what's gone on. And you feel this grief there that's pulling at you. And how you've known to deal with it in the past is to eat, just to get that moving, right? Just eat, to cover it up. But if we can feel that emotion and associate it with where we're feeling that discomfort in our body, we can then interact with that emotion in a different way. We can tap into that emotion and thank it. Thank that sadness for being there. Thank that sadness for pulling at you today in this moment, because it's telling you that there's still that sadness there. And if you can acknowledge it, it becomes far less big. If you acknowledge it, it will not creep up behind you and push you over. If you acknowledge it, then you won't find yourself at the end of that box of donuts feeling awful and frustrated with yourself. So you tap into that emotion and you say, thank you. Thank you, sadness. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for allowing me to say what I need to say, but also maybe in that time it wasn't safe to say what I needed to say. And so I just shoved it down and it got stuck in my throat. So thank you for keeping me safe. I hear that. Thank you. And I'm ready to let you go now. You've kept me safe. I'm so grateful. And I'm ready to let you go. And then imagine light filling that area. And what that does is it helps you acknowledge the fact that you were feeling this emotion. And now that emotion has been seen and is no longer going to be the one that is driving your decisions. Because it's when we try to shove those emotions down that they begin to drive us in different ways and we don't even know it. So we're listening. We're honoring our hunger. We're honoring our fullness. And we're honoring our emotions. And we're allowing the fact that we are emotional beings. That is part of the intensity of the love that we can feel. But we also then, on the flip side of that love, is sadness and is pain. But it is that fullness of the emotion. There was an interesting talk I was listening to that was talking about how when we feel love, inevitably there is always these edges of sadness because we know that there's impermanence, that something's going to change, that it won't be there forever, that life continues to move on. But that is part of the beauty of it. That's part of the sacredness of it. And if we can allow ourselves to actually feel it, we can open up so much more. And then we're not making choices to try to cover up those emotions with food, with distractions. We can then shift from guilt and shame to love. And when we make choices for our food out of love, we can make better choices. When we make choices from shame, we are not going to have the results that we are seeking. Shame is a splinter that separates us from our goals and our desires. If we can acknowledge it, then we can look at what's underneath it and help to unwrap that so that we can actually nourish ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Food goes beyond the physical part that is sitting on our plate. Food is the way that we nourish our minds. Thoughts are food in its own little way. Our social environment, our friends are food in another way. If we have really negative friends, they're going to pull out those negative parts in us and amplify them. If we surround ourselves with people who act out of love, we're going to make those choices more often in our homes, at work, in our communities. And building that love and shifting that to be the driving force. We transform our health. You know, when I first started on my health journey, I did it because I was terrified. I did it because I was scared. I was scared of my body breaking down. I was scared of the way my mind was not working the way I wanted to. I was scared of the fact that my life seemed ruled by pain and anxiety. And so I dove into finding out what I could do to help fix myself, right? But I didn't need to be fixed. I just needed to learn how to love myself and be okay with where I was and be able to listen to myself, what my mind was screaming at me, what my body was screaming at me, so that I could make better choices and have more opportunities for myself, have more opportunities to connect with not only myself, but with those I love as well. And then I started making choices out of love, because I realized that was the pivotal part. That if I acted out of love, I knew that I was going to make better choices, and that it wouldn't be about willpower to try and harangue myself into doing the right thing, eating the right thing, exercising, meditating, all of that. But I did it out of love, and it wasn't an effort anymore. When we're doing it out of fear because if we're scared of something, then it's effort. You gotta keep funneling time and energy and mind power into that, and it's exhausting. Constant state of fear. Who has ever felt, yeah, this is great? Yeah, that wasn't my life for a long time. But when we allow ourselves to have our food, our thoughts, our environment to be nourishing for us, we change that ballgame. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, there's some of the stuff I can't change around me. You know, some people are just, there's negative people in my world and they just can't leave. I can't cut them out, right? Sure, there might be. But you don't have to have them guide how you react. You don't have to let them control how you choose to show up in your life. I've had many people tell me, I don't know if I could change what I'm eating because my family, they just wouldn't understand. That when I was going through all of these changes, I didn't know what to tell them. And when I personally was making a lot of dietary changes, I would come home from school and my mom would be like, I don't know what you eat right now. And so as an act of love, but also as an act of giving myself the resources that I needed, I would prepare food. I would bring a dish that I knew I could eat, that I could share with other people. One, I was setting myself up for success. But also, I was sharing what I was learning with other people. And it was a way for me to share what I was experiencing and be able to give that love to my friends and family. Oftentimes, we shift the way we're interacting with our food because we don't like how we look. We feel shamed, we feel frustrated, we feel like we are living in a body that is not ours. By shifting that and reflecting back to the shifting away from what we're scared of to loving where we are, we allow our body and mind to relax at another level. And we allow ourselves to be able to enjoy where we are. So many of us are constantly fighting and pissed off because we're not where we want to be. But this is our journey. There's something that we need to learn in order to make the next step forward. If you think about it, you don't see a 5-year-old at their birthday party pissed off because they are not 25, right? They're not mad because they're not more progressed than they are. That's just where they are. They're stoked. It's their birthday. So if we can allow ourselves to be more gentle, more kind with ourselves, with where we're at, we then will give ourselves the ability to have more momentum, to make better choices, to create a new state for ourselves, a new reality, a new opportunity. And when we create that shift, we then open doors because we're liberating all of this time and energy that we used to funnel into, gosh, I really hate my thighs. I just can't look in the mirror. I'm so frustrated with how I look. And then we're obsessing about how awful we are. Versus, I really love this part about me. And to even play with it. Play with those parts that you thought you hated, and to play with it. Say, if the thighs were a part that you were just mortified about, tell yourself repeatedly, I love my thighs. And it makes it then a game. It interrupts the pattern that you've been repeating over and over and over again, and allows another option to enter into what might be actually real for you. And so then you can make more choices because you have opened up the options and you are less limited for yourself. And that's huge, because we need to create more options for you. Because oftentimes people feel like they are out of options, and therefore they continue running the same patterns and getting the same results and being pissed off that they're still getting the same results. And then we find ourselves in that vicious cycle. So what if this was a turning point for you? What if, right here and right now, you made a commitment to yourself to apply one of the tools that we've discussed today? What if you committed to honoring your hunger, honoring your fullness? What if you committed to checking in about your desire to eat when you're feeling emotional and being aware of when that comes up for you? What if you made a commitment to listen to the self-talk that was going on when you interact with your food? That is the challenge that I put to you today. Who here is willing to take that challenge of applying just one of these techniques? Excellent. Woo! Excellent. And for your go-getters out there, who's willing to apply them all? Excellent. We got a couple hands. Right? So this is what I challenge you. I challenge you to listen to your food. I challenge you to listen to your body so that you can, one breath, one bite, one step at a time, make choices to help you transform your health so that you can live a happier, healthier, more balanced life. And it all starts now, and every moment is an opportunity to practice and start fresh. Thank you so much. Really appreciated talking with you tonight. And I hope that you will apply these techniques and these tools to help you transform your life for good. Thank you so much.
You're watching KWCC LP Wenatchee and KCEM LP Chelan.